Okay, my friends, this starts off the new series about revelations, ancient texts, A to Z. Now, I'm going to talk about this guy here, Dr. James Tour. He's a academic, but he realizes that they're completely wrong about the origins of our life. They're totally wrong. Now, he, though, I don't think understands mud fossils and the implications that they bring up, and the things that I have discovered about comets and so forth, that meteorites that are coming through space. These are the things that I need to talk to him about, and I would like to be part of this discussion. So anyway, we're going to start now. Okay, before I get into this, I just want you to understand, this is why I deserve a seat at the table to discuss this. I have the specimens. I have the DNA tests. I have the CAT scans. I have the knowledge of how all this happened, and Yale printed a paper 1 year after I submitted all my stuff to them saying, yes, there was a giant flood worldwide, one layer, all the soft-bodied creatures were preserved in perfect preservation. Now, this is the DNA test, and these were extremely well done. It was expensive. It took a while. This goes back to 715. It took a couple of months, 715 to 917, and this was very, very, very well done. I worked closely with the lab, trying to understand every little detail, and they did a fabulous job. And this was excellent quality DNA sequences were obtained. I took them directly from the blood supply, and they did all the sequencing and all this stuff. This is not some simple little 5-minute over the swab. I drilled deep inside them, so I deserve to be able to speak. Now I'm going to show you my evidence real quick. Then we're going to go into this thing with James Tour against this other guy, Farina. And I'll show you what they have to say, how they're trying to understand the origin of life. I'm showing things that nobody can explain. Can Dr. Tour discuss with me these things that totally upset his apple cart? But they really don't. You just have to look at them in the correct light. Let's just go through it, and we'll find out what the correct light is. And maybe I don't have the correct light. I don't know. But you make your own decision. This has to be taken into account, or you're just walking around in circles. They're just making guesses. And that's all it is. They're taking mathematical equations of how long it would take life to propagate. It's insanity, really. It means nothing. It's 100% guesses. All right, you saw the test. It showed a lung and 2 fingertips. This was the lung. And I drilled up in here into the blood. I mean, blood just comes out of them. This one actually leaked blood out of it. These are lungs. This is the pleura of the lung. You see that fabric? That's that rubber bag I talked about. And I drilled, all you got to do is drill a little pinhole down right into the red blood, and you extract it. You don't need much. But you got to get down deep. You can't take it off the surface. And it comes out just absolutely just like red putty. It's still damp inside these things. They're not completely dried out inside. That rubber bag seals them very, very well. Well, hold on a second. Okay, if you know anything about anatomy, you know that's a bone, and there's another bone that'll sit right on here, and they rock back and forth. And this is the cartilage. But everything transitions. In mud fossils, the whole thing goes, because it's being invaded. It's called nucleophilic substitution. The more clay, the more it will turn to mud. Now, my stuff hardened up, even like Caesar here. But only the outside. Inside turned to basalt. Because that was a fleshy part. Now, the same thing with this. If you look, you could see that turns to basalt. The outside turns to feldspar because that's where the collagens are. Now, a scab formed in here, in somewhere where a blood vessel connected, they call them bone foramen. And that's one right there. And that's, when I took it out, that's what happened. It formed a scab. All right, here's the scab when I sort of moved it away from what's called the fibrin. That's fibrin. and it's a clotting fiber that coats and seals the hole, and then the blood cells collect on that, makes a scab, and then your body fixes itself, and then you're good to go. Now, and I can show you the holes too. Here they are right here. And one of them is your artery, the red one. Has a little tube coming out of there to go to your next bone, wherever it goes. This one is the black one. It's pretty obvious to me. Vein and artery, and that was what I showed you right from the start there, all the three of them in a row. Now, this I showed you the blood. This is, you see this here? These are what they call alveoli. That's these little sacs. And that's where the air goes in and you respirate. Now, what happens, your blood passes by all of these holes. There's a whole wrap around of blood vessels. And this one here, it must have laid down like this, and the blood collected down there in the mud, and the mud is no more than like flesh to this stuff. He probably didn't even know it was dead. The only problem is all the sacs became invaded with silicates. And this one here mostly was watery silicates. Now, I have some like hearts. This heart right here, that's a heart. That's the alveoli. And that right there is the ventricle wall, right down the middle, and that's one of the other red bloody spots on the top of the heart. All right, and this is what's called a water opal. And it was also in the same sort of condition where there's just a taste of red blood was left. But if you have a heart surgeon, he'll know that. He'll know there's that stripe running right down the side of the heart. And of course the aorta. And this is a lot of plumbing up here at the top. And then the red blood spot. There's a vein and an artery. I think it's an artery. Runs all the way down to the, well, I know it's an artery. Down the side there. Now, it is what it is. And I have a lung here that is unbelievable. It's got half of the, well, I'll show it to you. This is a mind warper. Look at this. This, and again, all flat on the bottom. Flat as a pancake. Now, here is all this pleura. All that rubber bag stuff is pushed to the side. There's the lung. And it's red blood. If I put water on it, it will hydrate and turn red. Now, this just happened to be in a condition where it pushed the pleura off the edge. This one, it completely got torn off. And it's right down to the, right here. But it was in a different condition where it was attacked by silicates. This was attacked primarily by aluminum silicates and feldspar and whatever. But anyway, they're all flat on one side, and that's this. You see that little flap right there? That's this little flap right here. And that one there is as flat as a pancake too. And Caesar is too. They all died in a great flood. And Yale says, yes, there was a great flood, coated the whole world with perfectly preserved, soft body creatures. That's just what you exactly, precisely what you just saw. So I applaud Yale for validating my research, which I presented to them, you know, a year or two before they published their paper. So that's a good thing that we're finally getting some reality. However, it's still slow-paced. I have heard that, well, that's for another discussion. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I have just validated everything I'm showing. I got DNA tests. Oh, I didn't even show you the CAT scans. Hold on a second. Well, let me show you, because I could only CAT scan some small stuff. This, there was no, well, hold on. This was from Jim Burchell and Arlie Caudle. I believe Arlie discovered this in a mud bank down in Kentucky. They showed it on TV. Scott Walter looked at it, and I mean, I think it was less than a minute. He said, no, somebody carved that. Who would carve a nose like that with the flesh off? He says, oh, that's just iron oxides. I said, no, Scott, that's That's blood. What do you think blood's made out of? It's iron, and it's two oxides. There's the red blood and the black blood. It's O2, O3. Oh, no, you don't know what you're doing. Anyway, I went back and forth with him for a while. Finally, he just walked away and said, I'm an expert, you're an idiot, basically. So we had this CAT scan because Yale said you have to have a CAT scan, da, da, da. And I said, who will you accept a CAT scan from? He said, well, we do ours from the University of Texas. Turned into a nightmare. They wouldn't accept it anyway. So I had 7 CAT scans done by Jesse Grant and Associates, who donated their time and effort. All I had to do was pay to ship the stuff up and back, of course. But it was $1,250 to scan that. And like I say, they would not even talk to me when I called back to ask them a question about the scan. They refused to talk. This stuff is just beyond what they will accept. So let's continue forward here, because I got some more stuff to show you. It's just over the top mind-bending. Okay, what I want you to look at here is, first of all, the grip skin. You see the silver stuff that's on top of this? That silvery stuff, how it's peeling off there. You see? This is a left hand. Splay your left hand back. That's the little cleave in between the two pads of your hand. This one runs off into your small little finger. And there's a little strip that runs down there, see it? And then the little finger would be out here. This thing was huge. This is only up to about here somewhere on the hand. It's not even up to the knuckles. Now, this is the thumb side. But you see that flaky looking silver stuff? That is what's called grip skin, if I didn't mention it before. And it's the tough stuff on your hands and your feet that give you the ability to grip and scrub, and and it wears off pretty regularly. Now, the fingers and so forth, I found some of the knuckles, and I found a bunch of parts from this, and from the other one too. It's not just one. I mean, they had a bunch of parts to them. Now, this is still on my property. The bigger one, I sold that piece of property. It's just off the edge. But I have some of that same guy right on my property. Just, it's only like 25 feet away into my property. So I don't own that anymore. But this one I do. And this was DNA tested. And the fingertips were CAT scanned. So I'll show you that. Very hard to see the CAT scan real well. This is the best as a surface scan. You see the white over here? You see the black over here? You see that little core right there? That little core right there. And right below, you see that little hole? You may not be able to see it. Let me turn the light off. But you have a vein and an artery running up there. There's your vein. It's always black is vein blood. There's your artery. Arteries just usually run out, which is what happened here. That is a tendon. And that is another these are heavy-duty tendons. Now, this is a thumb. And you say, oh, Roger, how could you say it's a thumb? I can tell you why. This is shooting from the back. This part here bumps up right here at your finger to the next bone, which is here. Now, on your thumb, you see how you got that? You see how there's an overhang? That's the only finger that overhangs. You see it? And this is the overhang of a right-hand thumb. All the other ones are right in the middle. This one overhangs. You should be able to see that. Well, you can see it on your own hand. Just grab it, and you see if there's a lump hanging off the side here. That's that lump. So, vein, artery, tendons, bone, and that's the back of the fingertip. Now, I did get the other one. It's very hard to see, I have to admit. Hold on a second. But it's been all transitioned. Let me see, do I still have that? Well, yeah, I got this one here. You have to look carefully, but you can see where that bone is. There's that bone. All right, these are all little blood vessels around that are running up to service the fingers. The fingers are flush with blood. You see them all here? Now, it's hard to see anything. I admit that. Very, very difficult. But I can absolutely see the bone here. If you can't see that, I can't help you about that. That is the silhouette of a transition between the fleshy part, the lump, and the bone. And you can just barely make out the transition zone between the two. And that's the problem with mud fossils. CAT scans are not, it depends on the mud fossil, I suppose. I had 7 of them done, and they were, Jesse did an absolutely fabulous job. Jesse Grant and Associates, very, very, very nice, and did an absolutely fabulous job compared to the University of Texas, which was an absolute waste of money. You see this? That's where the fingernail was. That's why I say the outside is where you get your best detail of, what would have been there. That's where the fingernail was. All right, and that's the tip of the finger. And it's just like, it's a little rise up you have on your thumb. And there's these little cuts in here. And they are where the tendons lock in so that you can do all these things with your fingers. I showed you that, oh yeah, let me show you the big boy. Here's the big boy. This, my friends, is approximately 3 feet long from front to back. This is a fingertip. You can say, come on, Roger, how can you point that out? Show me what a fingertip, come on. It's okay. Well, let's look at what a finger consists of. It's at the very end. It has a fingernail. You see, it has a nice fingernail. Well coiffed, as they say. And what is this here? What's that little round spot doing there? Well, this is a bumper pad that bumps up against your next bone. Otherwise, you'd scrub the hell out of it and you would be screaming in agony. So that is that bumper pad. Boom. What are these? Blood vessels. You know how much blood is in a fingertip? That's why. There is none in the grip skin. I had to chisel this off of here and break this piece off, which has the fingerprints on it, and I'll show you that. So there's the fingernail. There's the bumper pad. There's the blood supplies. There is the piece I had to break off so I could get down and get some blood. You cannot get blood from the surface of a fingertip. But, okay, a little bouncing around there, but here's the story. I broke this piece off, drilled down inside, and got literally raw blood, excellent quality. And here's why. You see this? This is what's in fingertips. That's all blood. All of these are blood. One side comes down as the artery. The other side comes back as the vein. Remember I showed you an artery and a vein right here at the tip of the fingertips? And I said, here's your tendons and here's your arteries and veins. That was it. Now, and I believe it was the thumb. Yes. And the thumb is even more saturated than all of them. That's right, it was a thumb. And it's just completely, look, I mean, it's just soaked in blood. You can't hardly miss. You drill into there and you just got nothing but blood. So don't forget, again, there's the white and there's the black, and those are tendons, and those are the blood supplies I just showed you. This is a thumb, a little different from the ones that were sticking up, but the ones that are sticking on the side. Absolutely saturated with blood, 100%. All right, I showed you saturation of blood. I showed you the fingertips and the CAT scans and the blood and the lungs and the head and all that. Well, this fingertip, as I showed you and claimed, there is fingerprints that came off when I chiseled that off to get the blood deep inside, to get the very dense blood, which they reported on the report. Well, here's the fingerprints right there. There they are. What can you say? Like I said, you can't get blood out of that. It's called heavily keratinized. Keratin is like a rubber, like a rubber tire. I mean, you can see there's nothing there. Underneath, though, it's absolutely soaking with blood. So when I chiseled that off, it came off right like that, just exactly like it was Velcroed. And these are the sweat pores. You see it? Take your time. You can always come back and look at this again. I don't think there's any limit. Now, you see them up here, the sweat pores? You see them on here? These are the ridges. Now, one ridge is one of these. And on your fingertip, you can look at it, you can see you got your ridges too. One ridge is the same thickness as my thumb. If I put my thumb right on there, just like that, it takes up the whole ridge. So that's a pretty good sized fingertip. It's 3 feet long. So think about that. If your fingertip just from here to here was 3 feet long, do the math. Work it out. Right now. What didn't I show you? And when I say how it should be looked at, what I have presented should be looked at, and I would invite Dr. Tour to my shop here to look at my evidence. I can certainly present it online, there's no problem there, but if he wants to go head to head, a mano, I'm certainly good with that. And the same thing with this guy here, Farina. You know, he's, yes, clueless. You're absolutely 100% clueless, and so is he. You're both clueless. Unless you can address my evidence, and then let's see where the clues lead. That's what we need to do. Now, there's going to be a couple of questions. I'm going to pick it up right from here. Learning. Let's see what we're learning. Okay, this section right here is quite telling. Now, my question is for Dr. Tour. Here it comes. Get ready.
Dr. Tour, given the significance of criticisms that you have on current research in the origin of life field, and given your prolific history of publishing, my question is, why aren't you publishing your critiques in reputable journals? Why are you... All right. Why are you denying the scientific community the benefit of your expertise? Why are you limiting your critiques to Discovery Institute publications and YouTube that the researchers you're talking about don't look at? 30 seconds.
Exactly. They don't look at it. They won't do anything, whatever he presents. He's got to go to the people because they refuse to publish. I've tried for 10 years. Forget about it. You're just wasting your time. And I no longer reach out to anybody. Forget about it. I have to go to the people. But I am also suppressed in that area too, because there's an algorithm that they put, and the people that are coming in to watch my stuff are so far out of the realm, they put you into the crazy people realm, where the only people I can communicate with is people that have found me by accident, basically. What I'm getting at is I'm not promoted. Now, this guy says, why don't you publish in all these manuals? Well, I'll tell you what, I'm almost certain that's what he's going to say. Because I know he tried to get 5 of these top guys that have been criticizing him. Not a one of them would stand up. And then none of them will. Not a single one will stand up to me. That's why I want to see both of these guys do what they're talking about. I want to see them stand up in front of me, because I can show them both that we have to take into account mud fossils, or they're just walking around in circles talking about the origin of life. I mean, I can't tell you how it came to be, but I can tell you that there were giants on the earth and there was dragons. After that, you're on your own. Here goes. He's saying, let's go, well, now you've heard it. Why aren't you publishing in, peer-reviewed journals and all this stuff? Because the peers won't review. Here it goes.
This is over.
Okay. First of all, it's very hard for me to publish a critique that is negative because it has to get through peer review. But that's not the main reason. There have been many critiques like this. So Bob Shapiro wrote critiques. Carl Carnes Smith wrote a whole book on his critique of this. Clement Reichert has more recently written his critiques, all of them speaking the same types of things that I am saying. These guys continue on as if it was never written. I am not trying to reach the origin of life researchers. I am trying to reach the masses.
Exactly, brother, because you will never get through to those people. They will never, ever, ever turn their heads. They have been menticide to taking advantage of everybody else, and menticiding the ones that come after them.
And there is something called social medium that is allowing me to reach the masses that never read the primary literature. I'm not trying to convince the origin of life researchers. I am trying to show the masses that there is another way of looking at this data. I am going after the people that do not read the scientific literature. That, to me, is what I want to do. And just so that you know, I'm not a YouTube guy like this guy is. I sit in my office and I work very hard at this.
You make a lot of YouTube videos.
I'll turn on my camera,
being a YouTube guy, buddy.
and my camera is on, and I forgot to have the sound turned on properly. It takes me hundreds of hours to do a series like that. I could certainly write articles in that amount of time.
The translation of this is, I can't publish my critiques because they're full of lies, so I'll lie to the public instead.
That's not nice. Why don't you investigate my stuff there, Mr. Dave Farina? And Dr. Tour, too. I need to have these guys talk. They're talking in circles, and nobody will come to see the actual evidence that supports what I say. I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to change their minds to some degree if they pay any attention to it. I can't believe that they're aware of the things that I have shown, and they're still talking like this. That, just like it never happened.
We have time for just one more question. Go ahead and ask your question, please.
Hi, so my question is for both Dr. Tor and Professor Dave. My question is, I think that this debate has kind of strayed from the original premise of, are we clueless about the origin of life? So if both of you could, using examples from the primary literature, Dr. Tor, I'd appreciate it if you could explain why we are clueless beyond a doubt, that there is no, that we are clueless about the origin of life. And Professor Dave, I'd like you to explain why we are 100% not clueless about the origin of life.
Okay, you go first. Go ahead.
So, really, James, all he can do is just write the word clueless a bunch of times. So we're not, right? All this research we've been talking about, despite his objections, we do have prebiotically plausible synthetic pathways to all of the important biomolecules and systems chemistry. It's only been going about 20 years, but...
All right, this is just absolute nonsense. This guy he's just nothing more than an academic drone, and this guy, I would like to see, is he a true scientist? He sounds like he is. This is where I always run into trouble. They never respond back. And I've tried to contact him several times, so I'm going to keep trying. All right, and if you can get through to him, say Roger, he's got evidence and he'd like to show it. Let me show you some things I have right now. I'll show you some DNA reports and some giant body parts. And they're CAT scanned, some of them. DNA tests on 3 of them. And it's undeniable. Okay, my friends, I just said I'm going to show you some things. I've already shown them to you, so I did it sort of backwards to make sure that you'd see that stuff first. Now, give me a thumbs up. If you don't give me a thumbs up, we're never going to get anywhere. And you got to share, and you got to be able to stand up and talk to people. They're going to demean you, just like this guy, Farina the Obnoxious, I call him. Now, I just emailed James Tour and sent him all the information that you just saw, and I am going to send him a video. He's on at Rice University. I actually went to Rice years ago for chemistry, and I filled him in on my background. I am fully aware of how to deal with all these different subjects. I've studied all of them, so I feel 100% confident to talk in this realm with all these guys that went to schools that were told what to say. And that's what he is. He's one of these guys that he's told what to say, and he says it. And that's how he stays with all the kids clapping, you're a hero. No, you're not. You're just a repeater. And I want to discuss it with these guys. Now, I don't know about James Tour. He has a different opinion than mine, but he is going back to the ancient texts. Now, he's going back to the biblical text specifically, I think. I don't know. I don't know exactly what his feeling is on the ancient histories. But I can tell you what, a scientist looks at all the evidence that's presented. They don't foretell what the outcome will be because it's unknown. And I'll tell you one thing right now, every day I learn something new that changed something else that I thought. Well, not every day, but pretty damn close, as you've seen. I've been posting videos every day, at least one or two, and every one of them has something of a little bit new in it. A lot of it is a rehash, but you have to bring yourself up to the current point of thinking, because everything changes. When one thing changes, it doesn't just change one thing. Nothing is alone. Nothing sits by itself. You have to think and say, well, what does that mean? If that happened, what does that mean about this? And what does it mean about that? And if that happened, what does it mean? And if that happened, it is a rabbit hole, no question. And I have dug about as deep as anybody's ever dug through that rabbit hole. So if you want to come down the hole with me, come on down. Otherwise, walk around in circles with guys like him.